They always chose him over me, even when I needed them the most.
I built everything, and they stole it right from under my nose.
But I didn't give up. I started over, stronger than ever.
And in one moment, the one they ignored became the one in control.
I got an A in math, I said, holding the paper in my hand. My mother glanced at it for less than a second. That's good, she said casually. Then she turned toward my cousin. Daniel, honey, tell them about your science award. Daniel leaned back in his chair with an easy smile. It's nothing special, he said, though his voice sounded proud. Just first place in the district. My father clapped his hands once. That's my boy. I sat there quietly, my paper still in my hand. My sister Emily leaned closer to Daniel. You're amazing, she said. How do you do it? Daniel laughed softly. Hard work, Em. I wanted to say something. I wanted to remind them that I studied hard too. But no one was looking at me anymore. This was normal in our house. Daniel Carter was the golden boy, and I was just there. At family gatherings, it was always the same story. Daniel's going to do great things, my Uncle George would say proudly. My father would nod. That kid has real leadership. Then someone would glance at me, usually my mother. She would sigh a little and say, I wish you were more like Daniel. The first time she said it, I laughed awkwardly. More like him how? I asked. She shrugged. More confident, more ambitious. Daniel smirked slightly, but didn't say anything. I looked down at my plate. Emily nudged him playfully. You should teach him your secrets. Daniel grinned. Maybe I will someday. Everyone laughed. I tried to laugh too, but it felt strange in my chest. One afternoon, Daniel and I were sitting in the living room. He was scrolling through his phone while I worked on my laptop. He glanced at the screen. Still studying? Yeah, I said. He shrugged. You study too much. I frowned slightly. Is that a bad thing? He leaned back. Not bad. Just pointless sometimes. What do you mean? He looked at me like the answer was obvious. Success isn't just about working hard. It's about being the right person. I stared at him. And you think you're the right person? He smiled slowly. I know I am. Before I could respond, Emily walked into the room. Daniel, she said excitedly, Mom made your favorite cake. He stood up immediately. See? Being the favorite has benefits. Emily laughed and followed him to the kitchen. I stayed in the living room, staring at my laptop screen. The words blurred together. That night we had a big family dinner. My father sat at the head of the table while my mother served food. Uncle George poured wine for the adults. Everyone looked relaxed and happy. Daniel was telling a story. So the professor said my presentation was the best in the class, he said. That's incredible, my mother said proudly. My father nodded. You've got a bright future, Daniel. Daniel glanced at me briefly. Then he smiled wider. My uncle leaned forward. Robert, you know what I've been thinking? My father looked curious. What? George gestured toward Daniel. This kid is perfect for the family business. My father smiled immediately. I was thinking the same thing. I felt something tighten in my chest. Daniel looked pleased, but pretended to be humble. Oh, I don't know about that, he said lightly. My mother waved her hand. Don't be modest. You're talented. Emily clapped her hands. Daniel running the company would be awesome. The conversation continued for a minute before my father turned to me. Daniel will take over the family business someday. His voice sounded certain. I blinked. The words hit me harder than I expected. I forced myself to ask the question, what about me? For a moment, the table went quiet. My father barely looked up from his plate. He said slowly. Then he shrugged. You'll figure something out. My mother nodded slightly. Everyone has their own path. Daniel took a sip of water. Emily looked uncomfortable, but no one argued. No one said I belonged there too. I stared down at the table. My food suddenly tasted like nothing. Inside my chest, something heavy settled into place. For years, I had wondered if maybe I was imagining things. Maybe I was just insecure. Maybe I was overthinking. But in that moment, the truth became clear. In my own family, Daniel would always come first. And no matter how hard I worked, I would always come second. I think this could actually work, Marcus said, staring at my laptop screen. You're serious? I asked. He nodded slowly. Yeah, I mean it. This idea could help a lot of small businesses. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled. Finally, someone believes me. Marcus laughed. I don't just believe you. I want in. That moment changed everything. I was 22, broke, and living in a tiny apartment. But for the first time in my life, I felt something I had never truly felt before. Pride. Marcus and I spent weeks working together. Late nights, cheap pizza, endless coffee. Okay, Marcus said one night. Explain it again. Our platform connects small stores to online marketplaces, I said. Inventory, orders, shipping, all in one dashboard. Marcus whistled softly. That's actually genius. It's not genius, I said. It just solved the problem. Exactly, he replied. That's what good businesses do. I smiled at the screen. For once, I wasn't the invisible one. After 2 months of work, Marcus leaned back in his chair. You know what we should do? He said. What? Pitch it to investors. I hesitated. Investors usually want connections. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Your family owns a business empire. I sighed. Yeah, I said quietly. But that's Daniel's world. Marcus shrugged. Still worth trying. So I tried. A week later, we sat at the big dining table in my parents' house. My laptop was open. My father, mother, Uncle George, Emily, and Daniel were all there. Marcus stood beside me. I cleared my throat. This is a platform for small businesses to manage online sales, I explained. I clicked through the slides. Marcus added details about growth potential. For once, everyone listened. When I finished, the room went silent. My father looked thoughtful. My mother glanced at Daniel. Uncle George leaned forward. This actually looks promising, he said. I felt my heart jump. Really? I asked. George nodded slowly. Yes. Then Daniel started laughing. Not a small laugh. A loud one. A startup, he said, shaking his head. Seriously? My chest tightened. What's funny? I asked. He leaned back in his chair. Most startups fail in a year, he said casually. Marcus crossed his arms. Some succeed. Daniel shrugged. Sure, if the right person runs them. My father spoke next. How much money do you need? He asked. I blinked. About $200,000 to scale properly, I said. Uncle George tapped the table. I could invest, he said. Hope rushed through me. That would mean everything, I said quickly. George raised one finger. But I have one condition. I felt my stomach drop slightly. What condition? He turned his head toward Daniel. Daniel becomes the public face of the company. The room went quiet. Marcus stiffened beside me. Daniel looked surprised for half a second. Then he smiled. That could be interesting, he said. I stared at my uncle. You mean like marketing? I asked carefully. More than that, George said. Interviews, presentations, leadership presence. Marcus leaned toward me and whispered quietly. This feels wrong. I whispered back. What do you mean? You built this, he said. Not him. I swallowed. Across the table, my father nodded slowly. Daniel does have strong communication skills, he said. My mother agreed immediately. He's very charismatic. Emily smiled. People love Daniel. Daniel looked at me. I'd just be helping, he said smoothly. Marcus muttered under his breath, helping himself. George folded his hands. Well, he asked, do we have a deal? The room waited for my answer. Marcus looked at me seriously. Think carefully, he whispered. I looked at the laptop. Months of work. Sleepless nights. My one chance to prove myself. Without investment, the company might die. Without family support, I had nothing. Daniel leaned forward. So he asked. My father added quietly. This is a good opportunity. I closed my eyes for a moment. Maybe they were right. Maybe Daniel's charm could help the company grow. Maybe this was just teamwork. I opened my eyes again. Okay, I said slowly. Marcus looked shocked. You're sure? He asked quietly. I nodded. Yes, I said. Uncle George smiled immediately. Excellent decision. Daniel grinned. Looks like we're partners now. Marcus stared at me as we left the house later that night. You really trust them? He asked. I forced a small smile. They're family. Marcus didn't answer for a long moment. Finally, he said quietly, I hope you're right. But deep down inside, something already felt wrong. For a while, everything actually seemed fine. Daniel became the public face of the company. Investors liked him immediately. My parents suddenly talked about me with pride. Well, technically Daniel leads it, my father would say during family dinners, but it's still impressive. I ignored the small sting in those words. One evening, Marcus and I watched Daniel on a business podcast. Daniel smiled confidently at the host. Our platform helps small businesses grow online, he said. Marcus muted the video. You notice something? He asked. What? He didn't mention you once. I shrugged. It's just marketing. Marcus leaned back. Still feels strange. Meanwhile, I was buried in work. Late nights. Fixing bugs. Writing code. One night, Marcus walked into the office and dropped a coffee beside me. You're still here? He asked. Someone has to build the product, I said. He smirked. Meanwhile, Daniel is posting photos from conferences. That's part of the deal. Marcus studied me carefully. You okay with that? I hesitated. It's temporary, I said. At least that's what I told myself. A few weeks later, my mother called. We saw Daniel on TV, she said excitedly. That's great, I replied. You boys must be doing amazing. I almost said something. Almost. But instead I said, yeah, things are good. For a moment, I actually believed it. Then everything collapsed. It happened on a quiet Tuesday morning. I was making coffee in my apartment when someone started banging on the door. Open up, Marcus shouted. I opened it quickly. What's wrong? He pushed past me, holding a folder. You need to see this. My stomach tightened. What is it? Marcus dropped the papers on the table. Legal documents. I picked them up slowly. At first, I didn't understand. Then I saw the words clearly. Ownership transfer. Share majority. Daniel Carter. George Carter. My hand started shaking. What? Marcus ran his hand through his hair. They transferred the controlling shares. I stared at the page. That's not possible. It already happened. My voice felt weak. Ow! Marcus pointed to a section in the document. Your uncle added clauses in the investment contract. I scanned the lines again. Hidden conditions. Technical language. Legal traps. They cut you out, Marcus said quietly. The room felt smaller. No, I whispered. Daniel wouldn't do that. Marcus didn't answer. I grabbed my phone immediately. Daniel answered after 2 rings. Hey, he said casually. What did you do? There was a short silence. Then he sighed. You found out. Tell me it's not true. It's just restructuring. You took the company. Relax, he said calmly. You're still part of the team. My chest burned. You stole it. That's a strong word. I built everything. Daniel's voice hardened, and I made it successful. I hung up. Marcus watched me carefully. You going to the house? He asked. Yes. The drive felt endless. When I walked into the living room, my parents and Uncle George were already there. Daniel stood near the window. I dropped the documents on the table. What is this? My uncle folded his arms. Business. You stole my company. Daniel rolled his eyes. You're being dramatic. I turned to my father. Dad, you knew about this? He sighed slowly. Daniel understands business better than you. The words hit harder than anything else. So you're okay with this? It's the smartest decision, he said. I looked at my mother desperately. Mom, she avoided my eyes. Maybe it's better this way. My chest felt hollow. Better for who? No one answered. Daniel stepped closer. You're talented, he said, but you're not a leader. I stared at him. You needed me. No, he replied calmly. You needed me. The room went quiet again. Finally, I said one thing. You could have asked. Daniel shrugged. This was faster. Something inside me broke. I looked at my father one last time. You're really okay with this? He didn't respond. That was my answer. I went upstairs slowly. My old room looked exactly the same. I packed my clothes into one suitcase. Emily appeared at the door. Are you leaving? She asked quietly. Yes. She hesitated. I'm sorry. I nodded, but didn't speak. When I walked downstairs, everyone was still in the living room. No one moved. No one stopped me. I picked up my bag and walked to the door. Just before leaving, I looked back once. My family stood together, and for the first time in my life, I understood something clearly. I had never really belonged there. So I opened the door, and I left. Not a single person tried to stop me. The next year broke me in ways I didn't expect. I worked wherever I could. Coffee shops, delivery jobs, freelance coding projects that barely paid the rent. One night, Marcus called while I was closing the cafe. You still alive? He asked. Barely, I said. You should come back to tech, he said. I never left, I replied. Tech left me. Marcus sighed through the phone. You know that's not true. Tell that to investors. After hanging up, I checked my phone and immediately regretted it. Another headline appeared. Daniel Carter, the young entrepreneur changing tech. I stared at the photo. Daniel stood on a stage with a microphone, smiling confidently. I muttered to myself, "You're welcome." At the cafe the next morning, my coworker Jake pointed at the news on his tablet. "Hey, isn't this guy famous now?" he asked. "Looks like it," I said quietly. Jake chuckled. "Wish I had that kind of success." I forced a smile. "Yeah, must be nice." When my shift ended, I returned to my tiny apartment. The room barely fit a bed and a desk. Marcus visited one evening carrying takeout boxes. "You look terrible," he said the moment he saw me. "Thanks. I'm serious," he replied. "You need a plan." "My plan is survival." Marcus sat down. "You built that company and lost it. You're still the same person." I shook my head. "Apparently not." Marcus stared at me for a long moment. "Daniel didn't build the platform," he said quietly. "But he owns it. That doesn't make him smarter than you." I didn't answer. Marcus eventually stood up. "Think about what you want," he said. "What I want?" I repeated. "Yes, revenge or success." After he left, I sat alone for hours. The question stayed in my head. Revenge or success? A few days later, I walked into a small bookstore cafe downtown. I opened my laptop and started browsing tech articles. Then I noticed someone sitting across from me. A woman closed her notebook and looked at me carefully. "You're staring at that article like it insulted your family," she said. I blinked. "Sorry." She turned her laptop toward me. The screen showed Daniel's face again. "You know him?" she asked. I hesitated. "Yeah." She studied my reaction. "I'm Sarah Collins," she said, extending her hand. "Journalist." I shook it slowly. "I'm someone who used to work with him." Sarah leaned forward. "Used to?" I nodded. "It's complicated." She smiled slightly. "Complicated stories are my favorite." I should have walked away. Instead, I started talking. I told her about the startup, the investment, the contracts, the betrayal. Sarah listened quietly the entire time. When I finished, she asked one simple question. "Why didn't you fight back?" "Because they already won," I said. "You really believe that?" I looked down at my empty coffee cup. "They took everything." Sarah tapped the table lightly. "No," she said. "They took your company." "That's the same thing." She shook her head. "Not even close." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She leaned back in her chair. "You still have your brain," she said. "You still have your skills. Those are harder to steal." I stared at her. She continued calmly. "So let me ask you something." "What?" Her voice became serious. "Do you want revenge, or do you want to prove them wrong?" The question landed hard. I didn't answer. Sarah watched me carefully. "Most people choose revenge," she said. "It feels easier. Maybe they deserve it." I replied. "Maybe," she said. "But revenge keeps you tied to them." I stayed silent. She picked up her notebook. "Proving them wrong is harder." "Why?" "Because it requires building something better." Her words echoed in my mind. Something better. For weeks after that conversation, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Every time I saw Daniel on the news, every time I struggled to pay rent, the question came back. Revenge or proof? One night, Marcus called again. "So," he said, "what's next?" I stared at my laptop screen. Lines of fresh code blinked in front of me. "I made a decision," I said. "Oh, I'm not chasing revenge." Marcus sounded surprised. "Really?" "Yeah." "So what are you chasing?" I smiled slightly. "Something bigger." "Which is?" I took a deep breath. "I want to build something better." The next day, I returned to the cafe. Sarah looked up from her laptop when I approached. "You look different," she said. "I made a decision." She closed her notebook. "Let me guess." "Go ahead." "You chose revenge." I shook my head. "No." She raised an eyebrow. "Then what?" I met her eyes. "I'm starting again." For a moment, she just studied me. Then she smiled. "Good." She grabbed her coffee. "Then stop talking about it," she said. "Start building." For the first time since the betrayal, I felt something inside me again. Hope. I was sitting in my apartment late one night, staring at a new code structure when my phone rang. "Please tell me you're still awake," Marcus said the moment I answered. "I'm always awake," I replied. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," he said quickly. "Something's finally right." I sat up in my chair. "What do you mean?" Marcus sounded excited. "I found someone who wants to invest." I blinked. "You're serious?" "Completely." Ooh, Marcus paused for dramatic effect. Victor Hayes. I nearly dropped my phone. The Victor Hayes? Yes, Marcus said. The same one. Victor Hayes had a reputation in the tech world. He was known for backing risky founders who everyone else ignored. Why would he meet with us? I asked. Marcus laughed. Because I told him your story. I rubbed my forehead. You told him everything? Not everything, Marcus said. Just enough. A few days later, we walked into a quiet office building downtown. Marcus whispered, "Don't panic." I'm not panicking. You look like you're panicking. I'm thinking. Marcus smirked. Think calmer. We entered a large conference room. A tall man stood near the window. He turned slowly when we walked in. Victor Hayes? I asked. He nodded. That's me. His voice was calm and steady. Marcus shook his hand first. Thank you for meeting us. Victor gestured toward the chairs. Sit. We sat down across from him. He didn't say anything for a moment. Instead, he simply watched me. The silence felt heavy. Finally, he spoke. Marcus told me an interesting story. I shifted slightly. What part interested you? Victor folded his hands. The betrayal. I exhaled slowly. That part wasn't very fun. Victor nodded. I imagine not. Marcus leaned forward. But the idea we're building now is stronger, he said. Victor raised an eyebrow. Explain. I opened my laptop and turned it toward him. This platform connects businesses across multiple marketplaces, I said. But unlike the old version, it uses predictive tools for inventory and demand. Victor studied the screen quietly. Marcus added, it solves problems for thousands of small companies. Victor looked back at me. Why didn't you build this before? Because I didn't know enough yet. Victor nodded thoughtfully. Failure is an expensive teacher. I smiled slightly. I didn't fail. I was robbed. Victor didn't react. Instead, he leaned forward. You were betrayed once. I nodded slowly. That means you learned something. I held his gaze. I learned who I can trust. Marcus smiled beside me. Victor watched both of us carefully. Then he asked, do you want revenge? The question caught me off guard. No, I said. Why not? Because revenge keeps me stuck in the past. Victor studied my expression. So what do you want? I answered immediately. I want to build something better. For the first time, Victor smiled slightly. Good. He leaned back in his chair. Because business is war. Marcus raised an eyebrow. That sounds intense. Victor shrugged. It's reality. He looked at me again. You lost once. Yes. What will stop it from happening again? I closed my laptop slowly. This time the company structure is different. Victor tilted his head. How different? Equal ownership between Marcus and me, I said. No external control clauses. Marcus added, everything is transparent. Victor nodded slowly. Smart. Then he stood up. Marcus looked nervous. So what do you think? Victor walked to the window and looked outside for a moment. When he turned back, his expression was calm. I'm in. Marcus almost jumped out of his chair. Seriously? Victor nodded. I like founders who survive betrayal. I felt my chest tighten with relief. Thank you, I said. Victor raised one finger. One condition. Marcus froze. What condition? Victor smiled faintly. You two stay in control. Marcus laughed. That's the easiest condition we've heard. Victor extended his hand. Then let's build something. Over the next months, everything changed. Marcus and I worked day and night again. But this time it felt different. Version 3 is stable, Marcus said one night. Finally, I replied. We tested new features, fixed security issues, improved speed. Every decision belonged to us. One evening, Marcus looked at the screen and smiled. We need a name. I leaned back. What about Nova Bridge? Marcus repeated it slowly. Nova Bridge. He grinned. I like it. The name stuck. Weeks later, we launched the first version. Marcus watched the dashboard nervously. Users are signing up. I smiled. That's just the beginning. Marcus leaned back in his chair. You realize something? What? We built this without them. I nodded. That was the point. Later that night, I sat alone in the office. The lights of the city filled the window. Marcus walked over quietly. You okay? He asked. Yeah. What are you thinking about? I looked at the screen showing Nova Bridge's growth. This company is different, I said. Marcus crossed his arms. Ow! I smiled slightly. This time, no one can steal it. 3 years passed faster than I expected. One afternoon, Marcus walked into my office holding a tablet. "You need to see this," he said. "What is it?" I asked. He placed the tablet on my desk. A business article filled the screen. Nova Bridge among fastest growing tech platforms. Marcus grinned. Not bad for two guys who started in a tiny apartment. I leaned back in my chair. "Remember when we couldn't afford decent coffee?" Marcus laughed. "Now we own the building that sells the coffee." I shook my head. Life changes fast. Marcus crossed his arms. "You built this." "We built this," I corrected. He pointed at the screen. "Look at the numbers. User growth looks strong," I said. "Strong," Marcus repeated. "It's insane." Just then my phone buzzed. Sarah's name appeared on the screen. "Speak of the devil," I muttered. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Journalist friend?" "Yeah." I answered the call. "Hey, Sarah. You sound relaxed," she said. "Should I not be?" "Maybe not tonight." I sat up slightly. "What's happening? Have you seen the news yet?" "No." "Then turn it on." Her tone was serious. "What? You want to see this?" Before I could ask more, she hung up. Marcus looked curious. "What did she say?" "She told me to watch the news." Marcus grabbed the remote and turned on the television in the office. A financial news channel appeared. The reporter looked tense. "Breaking story tonight involving Carter Technologies." Marcus froze. "Carter, as in?" I nodded slowly. The reporter continued. "Sources claim the company is under investigation for possible financial misconduct." Marcus glanced at me. "That's Daniel's company." I said nothing. The reporter kept speaking. "Early reports suggest leadership made several risky investments while hiding financial losses from investors." Marcus leaned closer to the screen. "This is getting ugly." I watched silently. The broadcast showed Daniel leaving a building surrounded by cameras. A reporter shouted questions. "Mr. Carter, did you hide financial losses from investors?" Daniel looked pale. He said nothing while security pushed the reporters away. Marcus muted the television. "Well," he said quietly, "that escalated fast." I stared at the frozen image on the screen. Daniel looked older, more tired. Marcus studied my face. "You okay?" "I'm just surprised." "Are you though?" I sighed. I always knew Daniel liked attention. Marcus nodded slowly. "Attention is one thing. Fraud investigations are another." My phone rang again. "Sarah," I answered. "You're watching?" she asked. "Yes." "What do you think?" "I think it looks bad." Sarah's voice softened slightly. "Apparently the company has been losing money for months." "That's not unusual for startups," I said. "True," she replied. "But hiding those losses from investors is unusual." Marcus mouthed the words, "That's illegal." I covered the phone and whispered, "I know." Sarah continued. "Sources say Daniel made several aggressive expansion moves, trying to grow too fast." Exactly. I thought about Daniel's personality. He always wanted to win quickly, sometimes too quickly. Sarah asked carefully, "Did you know any of this was happening?" "No," I said honestly. "Some people online are connecting you two again," she added. "Because of the old company." I rubbed my forehead. "That was years ago." "I know," Sarah said. "But people love drama." Marcus grabbed a chair and sat down. "What's the worst-case scenario?" he asked quietly. I repeated the question into the phone. Sarah answered immediately. "If investigators prove financial deception, investors could sue." Marcus whispered, "That could destroy them." I nodded slowly. "Thanks for the heads up," I told Sarah. "No problem." Before hanging up, she asked one last thing. "How do you feel about all this?" I looked at the television again. Daniel's face still filled the screen. "I feel strange." "Strange how?" "Like watching an old storm finally hit land." Sarah paused. "Well," she said softly, "storms don't last forever." After the call ended, Marcus unmuted the television. Another analyst was speaking. "This could be a major scandal if the accusations prove true." Marcus turned the volume down again. He looked at me carefully. "You didn't cause this, right?" The question hung in the air. I shook my head slowly. "No." Marcus nodded. "I figured." We both sat quietly for a moment. Finally, Marcus leaned back. "You know what this is?" "What?" He gestured toward the television. "Karma." I looked at the screen again. Daniel's confident smile from years ago felt like a distant memory. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel angry. I just felt calm. Because sometimes, karma works on its own. Rain tapped against my office window while I reviewed reports on my laptop. Marcus walked in holding 2 coffees. "You've been staring at that screen for an hour," he said. "I'm thinking," I replied. "About what?" "Expansion plans." Marcus handed me a cup. "You know what we should think about?" "What?" "Taking a vacation." I laughed quietly. "Maybe next year." My phone suddenly rang on the desk. Marcus glanced at the screen. Unknown number. I picked it up. "Hello." For a moment, no one spoke. Then I heard a voice I hadn't heard in years. "Son." My chest tightened instantly. It was my father. "Dad," I said slowly. Marcus's eyebrows lifted. "We need to talk," my father said. His voice sounded older, weaker. "What about?" I asked. "Please," he said quietly. "Just come home." I looked at Marcus. He mouthed, "What's happening?" I returned to the phone. "Why now?" I asked. There was a long silence. Finally, my father said softly, "Because we need you." The words felt strange. After the call ended, Marcus leaned against the desk. "That was your dad?" "Yeah." "What did he want?" "He asked me to come home." Marcus frowned. "After all these years?" "Apparently." He crossed his arms. "You going?" I stared at the phone for a moment. "Yes." Marcus sighed. "Be careful." The rain grew heavier as I drove toward the old house. Nothing about the neighborhood had changed, but everything felt different. When I parked outside, I sat in the car for a moment. Then I stepped out and walked to the door. I knocked once. My mother opened it. Her eyes widened slightly. "You came." "Dad asked me to." She stepped aside quietly. "Everyone's here." I walked into the living room slowly. The same furniture, the same walls, but the atmosphere felt heavier. My father stood near the window. Emily sat on the couch. Uncle George leaned against the table, and Daniel stood near the corner. I barely recognized him. The confident smile was gone. His face looked pale and tired. George spoke first. "Good. You're here." I stayed near the doorway. "What's going on?" My father rubbed his hands together nervously. George answered before he could. "The company is collapsing." I looked at him. "Carter Technologies?" "Yes," George said. "What happened?" George exhaled sharply. "Investigations. Lawsuits. Investors panicking." Emily looked down at the floor. My father stepped forward. "You've been successful," he said carefully. "With Nova Bridge." I said nothing. George continued speaking. "We're facing serious financial pressure." "How serious?" I asked. "Very serious." I folded my arms. "And what does that have to do with me?" My father hesitated. Then he finally said it. "Maybe you could help Daniel." The room became completely silent. The words echoed in my head. "Help Daniel." After everything that happened, I looked around the room slowly. My mother avoided my eyes. Emily looked uncomfortable. George watched me carefully. Finally, I looked at Daniel. He still hadn't spoken. "Say something," I told him. He shifted slightly, but kept staring at the floor. "Daniel," I repeated. He finally looked up, but only for a second. Then his eyes dropped again. For the first time in my life, Daniel Carter couldn't even meet my eyes. I stepped out of the house and onto the porch. The rain had stopped, but the ground was still wet. I leaned against the railing and exhaled slowly. Inside the house, my family waited for an answer. For years, they ignored me. Now they wanted help. The irony almost made me laugh. My mind started replaying old memories. My mother comparing me to Daniel. My father saying Daniel would run the company someday. Daniel laughing at my startup idea. Marcus warning me the deal felt wrong. And the moment they stole the company from me. I rubbed my face with my hands. "Unbelievable," I muttered quietly. My phone buzzed in my pocket. "Marcus." I answered immediately. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm standing outside my parents' house." "That sounds dangerous." I chuckled slightly. "You're not wrong." Marcus paused for a moment. "So what happened?" "They want help." "With what?" "Daniel's company is collapsing." Marcus whistled softly. "And they called you?" "Yeah." Another pause followed. "What exactly do they ask for?" he said. "They want me to save him." Marcus laughed in disbelief. "After everything?" "Apparently." I stared at the dark sky. Clouds slowly drifted across the moon. Marcus spoke again. "So what are you going to do?" I didn't answer right away. I don't know, I admitted. Marcus stayed quiet. Helping them would fix everything. Daniel could keep his company. My family would finally see me as the hero. But something about that idea felt wrong. Marcus finally spoke again. Let me ask you something. What? If the situation were reversed, would they help you? The question hit harder than I expected. I already knew the answer. No, I said quietly. Marcus sighed. Then why are you even thinking about it? I leaned against the railing. Because they're still my family. Marcus responded immediately. Family doesn't steal from you. I closed my eyes. People make mistakes. Stealing a company isn't a mistake, Marcus said. That's a choice. His words echoed in my mind. Choice. Daniel made his choice years ago, and now I had to make mine. Marcus asked again, are you trying to save them or prove something? I thought about that carefully. Maybe part of me still wanted their approval. Maybe part of me wanted them to finally say they were proud. But another part of me felt something different. Freedom. Marcus spoke again. You don't owe them anything. The sentence hung in the air. For years I believed I had to earn my family's respect. I worked harder, studied longer, tried to prove my worth. But it was never enough. Now they needed me, and suddenly the power had shifted. I looked back toward the house. The lights glowed through the windows. Inside those walls were the same people who once ignored me. But I wasn't the same person anymore. Marcus asked quietly, still there? Yeah. So, I exhaled slowly. I'm thinking clearly for the first time. And I looked at the dark sky one more time. For the first time in years. I felt calm. Marcus waited patiently. Finally, I said something simple. You're right. What am I right about? I smiled slightly. I don't owe them anything. I walked back inside the house. The room went quiet the moment I entered. Everyone was still sitting in the living room. My father looked up first. Well, he asked. My mother leaned forward slightly. Emily watched me carefully. Uncle George looked impatient. Daniel kept staring at the floor. I stayed near the doorway for a moment. Then I walked to the center of the room. My father spoke again. So, will you help us? I took a slow breath. I will. Relief immediately appeared on several faces. My mother covered her mouth. Well, thank goodness. Emily smiled faintly. George leaned back in his chair. I knew you'd make the right decision, he said. Daniel finally looked up, but I wasn't finished speaking. I will help, I repeated calmly. But on my terms. George frowned. What terms? I looked around the room slowly. Then I said the sentence that changed everything. I will buy the company. For a moment, no one spoke. My father blinked. You mean invest? No, I said. Buy. George sat up straighter. How much? I kept my voice steady. $1. The silence that followed felt heavy. Daniel stared at me in disbelief. What? I repeated it clearly. I'll buy Carter Technologies for $1. George slammed his hand on the table. That's robbery. I shrugged slightly. No. My father looked confused. That company is worth millions. Not anymore, I said calmly. George's face turned red. This is ridiculous. I folded my arms. Then you can refuse. Emily looked nervous. What exactly are you asking for? She asked. I turned toward her. Full ownership. George scoffed loudly. You're insane. I'm practical. My father rubbed his forehead. There must be another solution. Maybe, I said, but not for me. George leaned forward angrily. You think you could take advantage of us? I met his gaze. You took advantage of me first. The room fell silent again. Daniel shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I continued speaking. There's one more condition. George threw his hands up. Of course there is. I looked at each of them. You all step away from the business. My father looked shocked. Completely? Yes. George laughed bitterly. You want us gone? I want control. Emily whispered quietly. That's a lot to ask. I shook my head. It's actually very simple. Daniel finally spoke. Why would you even want the company back? His voice sounded tired. I answered honestly. I don't. Everyone looked confused. My father frowned. Then why do this? I gestured toward the table. Because I know the platform's weaknesses. Marcus and I had studied their system for years. Daniel knew that too. He stared at me for a long moment. You're serious, he said quietly. Yes. George stood up abruptly. This is insulting. Then say no, I replied calmly. My father looked between us nervously. George, George paced across the room. We built that company. I raised an eyebrow. You stole it. George stopped walking. The tension in the room grew heavier. Emily finally spoke softly. What happens if we refuse? I answered honestly. Investors continue the lawsuits. My father looked worried. And if we accept, the company survives. George muttered under his breath. This is blackmail. It's business, I replied. Hours passed while they argued. Voices rose. Accusations flew across the room. I stayed quiet most of the time. Eventually, the arguments slowed down. Everyone looked exhausted. My father turned to Daniel. What do you think? Daniel sat silently for a long moment. Then he looked at me. You'll run it better than I did. George looked shocked. Daniel. Daniel shook his head slowly. We don't have a choice. The room fell quiet again. My father sighed heavily. All right. George glared at me. This isn't over. I simply nodded. Actually, it is. Daniel stood up slowly. When do you want to sign the papers? Tomorrow, I said. My father looked at me carefully. You really planned this? No, I said honestly. But I was ready. Later that night, I stepped outside again. Marcus called immediately. So he asked. I smiled slightly. I bought the company. For how much? $1. Marcus laughed loudly. That's unbelievable. I looked back toward the house. Years ago, I had left that place with nothing. Now everything had changed. In one moment, the power had completely shifted, and the company Daniel stole from me was finally mine again. Months passed, and for the first time, I felt steady. Nova Bridge ran smoothly. Investors were satisfied. Users kept growing, and Marcus and I rarely argued anymore. The office buzzed with quiet efficiency, a far cry from the chaos of my earlier years. One afternoon, I was reviewing quarterly reports when my assistant knocked. Someone's here to see you, she said. Who? I asked. She hesitated. Emily. I froze for a moment. Then I nodded. Send her in. The door opened slowly, and she stepped inside. Her eyes flickered nervously around the room. I hope I'm not bothering you, she said quietly. You're not, I replied calmly. She swallowed and glanced at my desk. I wanted to say I'm sorry, she admitted. For everything, she added, her voice barely above a whisper. I looked at her carefully, her hands twisted together in front of her. I know, I said simply. Her eyes widened slightly. That's all you have to say? She asked. I shrugged lightly. It's enough. Emily looked down, biting her lip. I never realized, she started then stopped. Realized what? I prompted. That I was siding with Daniel, with the family, and not seeing you, she said softly. I leaned back in my chair. People make mistakes, I said. She glanced at the floor again. I want to make it right, she said after a moment. By doing what? I asked. She lifted her head and met my eyes. By trying to reconnect with you. I nodded slowly. I appreciate that. There was a pause. I didn't feel anger anymore, but I also didn't feel the need to forgive completely. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past. It's going to be different now, I said finally. She nodded, understanding in her eyes. I know, she whispered. We stood there for a moment, quiet except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. Then she turned to leave. Take care, I said. You too, she replied. The door closed behind her, leaving me alone. I walked to the window and gazed out at the city lights. Skyscrapers glimmered like stars in a sea of concrete. I thought about the past, about the nights I spent alone coding, worried I'd never succeed, about the betrayal that nearly broke me, about Daniel, the golden cousin who always seemed to have it all, about my parents who never seemed to notice me, and about Marcus who believed in me when no one else did. A faint smile tugged at my lips. Life had a strange way of working out. The same family that once ignored me had learned the truth. The one they overlooked had become the strongest. Daniel had left town, starting over somewhere else, probably realizing the value of what he lost. My parents occasionally sent emails, trying to reconnect, but I was cautious. I had earned success on my own terms, and no one could take that from me. The city lights reflected in my eyes, bright and steady. For years, I had been the quiet one, the one everyone assumed would fail, the one everyone overlooked. And yet, here I was. The company thrived. The power had shifted, and I had finally understood something important. Strength isn't loud. It isn't flashy. It grows in silence, in persistence, in the refusal to be ignored. I turned back to my desk and looked at the Nova Bridge dashboard. Every statistic, every user, every line of code reminded me of what I had built. No one could take it away. Not Daniel. Not my family. Not anyone who had doubted me. For the first time in my life, I felt truly free. I leaned back in my chair, letting the city lights wash over me. Sometimes, the quiet one becomes the strongest. Sometimes, the person everyone overlooks is the one who wins in the end. And sometimes, life has a way of proving that those who are underestimated should never be ignored. I smiled, feeling the weight of the past lift slightly. The one they ignored had finally become the one who mattered. And I wasn't looking back.